Hi, I'm Brett, and today for our video update we've got an MY13 Subaru Impreza STi. This car was delivered to us from a client, original factory standard. He's looking for some upgrades for maximum performance without any internal engine modifications and some improvements in handling. What I'm going to update you in the next 3 to 5 minutes is just exactly what we ended up with to achieve over 260 kilowatts at the wheels. And this particular output from a custom dyno tune, you can look at our Facebook page and our website for dynographs for a particular car with these outputs. I wanted to explain how we've actually achieved these upgrades, because remembering these cars are detuned when they're delivered from the factory here in Australia. They do have some known problems internally with piston problems, but if you do the modifications in the correct manner and then plan for the total upgrades in the future and you know what you ultimately want to achieve, you'll end up with a fantastic result. And this car certainly is exactly that. It's got a flex fuel tune controlled with the factory ECU, so the client can put either 98 octane fuel in it or go to 100% tank full of e85 ethanol based fuel. And the 264 peak kilowatts at the wheels measured on our hub dyno, as compared to original factory standard on our dynos on this particular car about 190. These cars factory standard about 190, 200 kilowatts when they're in their unmodified state. Interestingly, the peak torque has gone from 380 newton meters at 3,200 RPM up to 510 newton meters at 2,800 RPM. So it's gained a huge amount of torque, but it's also come in a lot earlier. So this car will be an absolute jet when it comes to driving on the road. Remembering this is still running original factory standard turbo. The client hasn't elected for an upgrade turbo yet because we're only running under 17 pounds of boost. And that's a good example of how boost is not the be all and end all of chasing outright power with these cars. If you get the right package of parts, you end up with the right result. And I'll get my cameraman just to show in the engine bay some of the things that we've done. We've done a modified air intake because at the level of power that we're producing, the factory air box is a restriction, although normally at the level of grunt that we're producing with 98 octane fuel, that's not a problem. But when you've got additional power gains with ethanol based fuels, that is something that is necessary to increase airflow. It's got a silicon intake to the turbo, which flows more air under the original factory manifold. Remembering we're still running original factory turbo because we're not running any more peak boost, so this turbo is more than adequate. Got a MRT cross-flow top mount intercooler which fits on the original factory mounts. GFB fully adjustable blow-off valve, so there's no boost leakage, and also brings the boost on a little bit more snappy with the throttle response. And the critical thing from the ultimate power over the XB kit standards is this sensor up the back here, which I'll get my cameraman to show carefully. Is mounted to the firewall with the fittings to go into the original factory fuel line. Now that sensor is a Zetronics flex fuel sensor which measures the inbound fuel going into the engine for the type of fuel it is, and it's got a display in the inside the car. And what that does is if you put more and more ethanol in the tank, it will self-adjust by sending a signal, or the ECU will self-adjust by that sensor sending a signal to it as an additional input. Now, a lot of people don't understand how we can control this through the factory ECU, but there's a small wiring modification where we then use this sensor as an input to the factory sensor as if it was fitted at the factory in Japan. And then by changing the settings in the ECU using the Ecotech tuning software with the race ROM functionality, we then bring that data input and then use that as the function to create more ignition timing, fuel control. Obviously, because we're running the options of ethanol in the tank, the original factory injectors won't flow enough, so we put bigger injectors in this car as well, and that all then has to be remapped to suit both 98 octane fuel and E85. So at one extreme, you've got a car with all these mechanical modifications running on 98 octane fuel, and then as you fill the tank and it mixes with 98 and becomes more and more concentrated to E85, the sensor adjusts. The mechanical modifications are still the same, but because you're running a fuel that's got a high ethanol content, which means we can run more ignition timing and other settings with more flow, that allows us to generate more power, even with the same mechanical modifications. So as a yardstick, between this car on the dyno, we only ended up with 72% ethanol in the tank, which indicates we still had a little bit of 98 octane fuel in it. At under 17 psi boost, the base run come out at 230 kilowatts peak, and then when we switched it all over to the ethanol based fuel at 72%, we got right up to 264 kilowatts. So we've gained 34 kilowatts going from 98 octane fuel to 72% E85 fuel. Of course, this car will then generate even more power when the client fills it up with another tank of E85, because then the petrol tank will be completely full of only E85 fuel, which will increase the octane rating again, and the car will then generate even more power. And I don't want to harp on it, but a lot of people ask these questions. What happens then when he puts 98 back in the tank? Well, obviously it'll be a mixture. The ethanol content will be diluted. The sensor will read it going into the engine. It will then change the settings in the ECU, and the power will then drop back down. So there you have it. A flex fuel tune with the ability of choosing the different fuels for their tank, mechanically standard parts with a package of upgraded parts. This is a combination of like somewhere between an XB and XC kit. You'll find a whole heap of other info on our power kit document that you can download off our website. This client has also opted for some other suspension improvements as well. So from a stealthy point of view on the outside, the car looks relatively standard. In the near future, we're going to then do an engine upgrade and push it even harder with a more boost. But remember, this particular engine with original factory hyper-eutectic pistons and standard rods, you need to run under 17 psi boost to keep an element of reliability. Otherwise, you'll end up cracking a ringland, consuming oil, and then eventually you'll start losing a lot of power because the engine has obviously failed. So there you have it. I really hope this video update has helped you and not confused you. The Flex Fuel Tune upgrade is only available with Ecutech software anywhere in the world. For more technical information, you can go to our website or ecutech.com.au. Follow us on Facebook for some dyno graphs. Go to our website for the resources page. You can download and have a look at dyno graphs there. But for today, wherever you are in the world with your Subaru, I'm Brett Middleton. I hope this has helped you. Bye for now.